please could you all just introduce yourselves, maybe sharing a short personal journey on how you've got into the impact space, along with what you're doing as leaders and what your missions are. Maybe, Anne-Claire, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so my name is Anne-Claire Pache. I got into the impact career as a social entrepreneur. I was part of the founding team of an organization called Unicité that introduced youth service in France. And I loved that experience so much. It was my job for a few years that I thought I want to help students get into that space of social entrepreneurship. And so went back to study, then joined ESSEC as a business school to launch a specific curriculum on social entrepreneurship, leading me to becoming a professor, and today I'm the head of strategy and sustainability at ESSEC Business School. And in that role, I'm trying to push as hard as I can together with the leadership team to transform the school, its programs, create also new programs to tackle these immense social and environmental issues that the world is facing.
Brilliant, well, welcome. And on Haut, tell us about your journey.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Prieto. So, I am part of an NGO which is called Pour un réveil écologique. In English, it means for an ecological awakening. So, our role is to wake up higher education, to wake up companies, and to wake up the public sector. We started 4 years ago, where we wrote a manifesto, so that's the journey part. We were quite anxious when we were students, because we saw that what our universities gave us as job opportunities at the end of the studies were not compatible with the urgency of the ecological transition.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more through the questions we're going to be asking today. And Ernst, I believe that you went to ChangeNOW when there was just 150 people, 6 years ago or so, and you have a long CV. So tell us about your journey ahead of you becoming CEO of Erasmus Enterprise.
Yeah, so thanks, Josh, and great to be here. Great to be here probably for the 6th time. But it's also what I've also encountered. I'm a lawyer by background. So then, even then, you don't need to give up your impact career, right? So what I did, I effectively worked 15 years in corporate environments, and I never tried to settle with the status quo. One of the things you were trying to do is make those little differences every day in your career. And even then, in those days, it was not always appreciated, but still trying to see sort of, hey, in the core business we do this, but what is a little bit outside the core business? And don't forget, on the edges, you can gather the most speed. And that's also a fascination for me. For the next step that I made was leading an impact organization, which is in the circular economy, relatively successful from 0 to 100 million business in 6-7 years time.
Pretty successful.
And that was also a nice journey, because you can do so much when you do have that aptitude as well, the attitude as an entrepreneur. This is also where you can make a difference. And that got me fascinated to my next stage, which was really about sort of innovation and learning the trade of innovation and how impactful that can also be. So this is also where I moved into, next to my role as Erasmus Enterprise CEO, non-executive director at Enviu, which is a venture builder across the globe, to also see that impact can be made through venturing and entrepreneurship.
Brilliant. Well, welcome. And Anne-Claire, as someone who specializes in social innovation and philanthropy, as well as being a director of strategy and societal engagement, I'd love to jump in, straight into the juggernaut of asking you a question, which I think we could probably explore for at least the next hour, which is there a right starting point for people, to really truly make impact? Should they be working in corporates, especially the biggest, baddest corporates in the world, or should they join an NGO? What's your perspective?
That's a question that students ask me every day.
Okay, good.
And my answer, starts a bit with what Tom was saying just before, which is there is not, one single way to have a career with impact. There are multiple, careers potential with impact. And so what matters is less, exactly the trajectory that you will build, then first, finding your own, purpose. What is it that you really care about? What is it that, makes you, wake up enthusiastic every single morning? As well as identifying, what are your potential, strengths? What are the areas where you feel like, you're very at ease, that maybe you're, performing better than others, because this is where you're going to be able to have the most impact. And then once that's not that easy to identify, right? And again, you will identify, what your core goal and what your core skills are, not by sitting on your bed and wondering, but by, getting out there, doing stuff, volunteering, internships, jobs, even, small jobs, finding, understanding yourself better. I would say that's probably, the beginning. And then I think what is really important is for everyone, especially, the students in the room, is that a career is a living thing. And so you can start wherever, in working in an NGO, and then, if you're really, serious and good at what you are and you're working hard, etc., you can either, pursue in that field if you feel this is where you're going to have the most impact, or you can also, jump and go work for the public sector, and then you can go work for the private sector. I mean, these days, what we see is much more porosity between worlds, and impact needs people that have a good understanding of all the worlds, of the non-for-profit world, the corporate world, and the public world. So the more experience you can get to this, with these three spheres, and the more somehow, hybrid you are in terms of being able to understand how these different worlds function, I think the more impactful and powerful you'll be in driving impact in your career. So no recipe, fundamental, get to know who you are and where is it that you can have the most impact, and whether you'll be a better, therapist, a better trainer, or a better doctor, if we follow up on the metaphors that Tom was using. And I think this is really key. All roles are good and important. Who you are going to be the best at, I think, is going to be the most important.
Do either of you want to build on that? Is there the right starting point?
Yeah, that's probably, it's the hardest question that you can ask, right? Sort of in every, it's very individual. We do apply sort of also at university certain sort of triple steps. There's a certain level of awareness, and obviously what we need to do as a university is make people aware of what's happening and make that visible and transparent. So you can also be playing a big role in that as a researcher, for instance. But you can also be sort of aware on that part and sort of involve your inner circle or your secondary circle by doing voluntary work or whatever. But it's also that the next level is to advance. You really would like to push something in something that really, is close to your heart, right? So that could be sort of, hey, you want to go into hydrogen change or want to do something else. That is all fine. And then the third level is to accelerate. To accelerate that you really want to push for it. And one question you can ask yourself is sort of, what can I bring? What can I bring as a person? And if you're a student, you have one fantastic attribute, which is flexibility, leniency. You can go out there, you can think out of the box that other people can't, right? Because they're in their intrinsic system, etc. So there's no good or bad answer, there's no good or bad start, but think about it, sort of, awareness, advance, accelerate, and find your purpose in that somewhere. And you don't need to be good in everything, so give yourself a little bit peace of mind as well. I want to explore one route, and whatever, 6 months' time I'm going to explore another. That's all perfectly fine.
Maybe to build on those two answers, and I really agree with everything that you said. I think that today we really have to operate a systemic change. And so when we speak about systemic change, that means that we have to change absolutely everything. So this applies to every sector. This applies to almost every job. So no matter where you are, you have ways to have an impact in this specific position. And so the most important thing is not what where can I go, but where am I right now? And where am I the best? So that's the first very important question. And second, what do I like? I think that if you have those two, then you can have tremendous impact.
I think that's a really good build. And on the topic of systems change, let's take a step back and actually look at the education system itself. Why is it important for us to look at and change the education system, at this kind of crossroads in the climate and ecological breakdown? I'm interested to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so as I was saying, there's a gap today between the actions taken so far and the challenges ahead of us. So we really have to start, actually, the systemic change. What we've tried so far in the past isn't enough, and we have to, as I said, change every sector and change every job. And this, of course, starts with education. The problem is that today, when you look at France, for instance, most students, when they graduate, they lack the basic skills, the basic tools to really be actors of the ecological transition. And so what we want at Pour un réveil écologique is that every graduate has these basic skills, and we want to work on 3 main pillars. First, the head, very important. What is happening today? Second, the heart. We spoke about the purpose before. Why is it important? This is also a very important part, and usually it's not covered. And third, the body. What can I do? If we have those 3, the head, the heart, and the body, then we can have those architects. We can all become those leaders of the change that we need.
Amazing. The head, the heart, the body. Ernst, what do you think is the most important attributes and skills for somebody wanting to make a real impact in the ESG space?
No, it's also fair to say sort of there's stuff happening around us where you need to be also aware of. And one of the things that, for instance, in time frame over 7-8 years, something has remarkably happened. Not only about this conference, as Rosemary will sort of allude to later, but it's also in 2015, 2016, only 5% of venture capital went into impact investment. 2019, we were less than 10%. Now, 2023, we are about 25% of venture capital goes into impact ventures. That means that has massively grown, not only in percentage-wise, but also in an absolute form. So think about it, and I'm from a business school, right? So there's a massive opportunity. We need people who understand impact. We need regulators that can regulate that also the incentives for the people that want to start an impact career. We need people in corporates to make those links and bridges the gap in there. So we need all of you with your brains in that one to capture that part. And there's also things that we can do in education, within the education space. If you feel that it's not appropriately addressed, ring the bell also with your university staff or the board. One example we do, for instance, or we just recently did, we do research on waste management of the municipality of Rotterdam. We apply econometrists to do so, right? They should be the future accountants and stuff, totally boring, but they came up with a super clever algorithm how to optimize the waste management. Effectively, yesterday we announced on how to optimize that part. So a boring econometrist can make an impact as well with the education space that we give the opportunity as well as at Erasmus University.
And on top of setting up those partnerships, is there any other ways that Erasmus Enterprise is supporting in developing those skills?
Yeah, we try to, obviously give the tools as much as possible. We give the ability and let's say the safe space, because if you're doing experimentation, you should also be able to fail. You learn most of your failures, so we give them the safe space for the students, but as well for academics, to actually change their part. Be pivotal. On the pivotal changes, you need to also be flexible. So we give that opportunity as well to the students or the graduates or the ventures that we're trying to build, and make that impactful. So we will only focus on impact.
And Claire, let's talk a little bit about hard versus soft skills. So I hire people and have occasionally got into the trap of thinking that I need to hire a specialist in everything. So they've got to be, ability to lead a team, but they've also got to know this software inside out. I'd love to know, do you think that we need to be real specialists in everything, or one thing?
So, I mean, I don't think it's an either or. What we're trying to do, at ESSEC, if I speak about, our programs, we have a few programs that really do specialize in impact. We have, a bachelor in impact that is very pluridisciplinary. We have a master's program in sustainability transformation that really prepares, experts. But in all of these programs, we combine, very solid general knowledge on the social and environmental, issues and challenges on the one hand, understanding, the core of the issues, understanding enough of, innovation and management to be able to understand, how organizations then, operate and function. And then we offer opportunities to go deep in one specific dimension. So in that, for instance, in that master's in sustainability transformation, every student can choose one area that they want to become, more expert on. So whether it's circular economy, whether it's ecological transition, social innovation, sustainable food, etc. And that is a way. So I think, no one will, totally have impact by being only very, very broad generalist, and being just a specialist and having a very, very narrow focus is going to limit also your ability to change. So a combination of both. What I think is, ultimately is going to really make a difference is really these soft skills that will allow you anyways to adapt to a changing context. I mean, what we know for sure today is that we don't know what jobs will be needed by 2030. A lot of studies show that. And so, learning a job today is about, meaningless because, it's very likely that the job will be very different in a few years from now. And so what is very important for people to, and students in particular, to learn is, flexibility, adaptability, coping with uncertainty, coping with ambiguity, which is all that, transition is about, understanding, change management. I think a lot is also going to be about how do you get organizations, systems, countries, global governance to change, and understanding these, mechanisms of change. How do you use power when you're powerful, when you're powerless? I mean, there's so many things that can be learned and that are needed to be able at the end to, make this systemic change happen.
Really interesting. And Angel, I think the young people are ultimately their voices are heard the least, but they're going to be affected the most by our climate and ecological breakdown. What can students do to, I guess, further influence both universities and corporates in order to develop new ways of learning and working?
Yeah, that's the most important question, I think. Maybe I can speak about what we do at réveil écologique in the field of education, for instance. Our vision is that every student should have this core curriculum on ecological transition. So it's very important that they have these impact-specific programs at ESSEC and so on, but it's also essential that everyone has this common background. And so to do that, we engage with all the ecosystem, and that makes like 3 families of actors: the students, of course, the universities, higher education institutions, and the public sector. And the 3 are important. So with the students, we have created this platform, the platform for an ecological transition of higher education, where we give some tools to students that don't know how to start to engage with their universities and help them come together and make their voices heard. We also have started this Tour de France of the ecological transition, where we go to universities and meet the students to empower them and to help them go further. So that's the students. But also we have the universities. We've developed a survey that we sent to dozens of universities to ask them and have some transparency of where they are on Life Campus, on the teaching and the research, and on job opportunities that they offer to their students. And we have all the answers for more than 50 different higher education institutions. And we also highlighted the best practices. And this is a very powerful tool for students that want to start from inside. And then third, the public sector, very important from a systemic point of view. We have been part of a task force led by the French Ministry of Higher Education on how we create this common curriculum and what we put inside. And so stay tuned for some announcements to come soon on this part.
Love it. And I mean, I think you've just hit the nail on the head there. Some of the most articulate people I know, in especially climate and the environmental debate, they are young people. And I guess one of the problems is that young people have got tens and tens and tens of ideas. Naivety is bliss sometimes. How do you see young people ultimately gaining that much needed experience, perhaps before setting up their own business idea or their own innovation?
Now we do see that there's so much talent, and with the right set of tools, that there's so much output that we already generate with many of them. Also, my work at Enviu, where I'm the non-executive director, we build businesses together with students, with graduates, in an early stage of their career, and making a real impact. There's, for instance, we built a business in Eastern Africa of food preservation business. And we started with a blank canvas. We used all the ideas of students, graduate, PhDs, etc. in that one. And then we further advanced on that one. And then now it's one of the most successful sort of businesses in East Africa with food preservation. And there's also what I would call these, let's say, the societal dividend. Small farmers can now earn 20 to 30% better net earnings on that one, which is an amazing result, because we really get them a new perspective on that one. And we used the student power, we used the people that could actually have that stamina and energy, effectively bringing that forward. And those examples go in search of a real systemic problem and see if you can help solving that with your brain power there.
Now, I'd love to ask everybody this question, but Anne-Claire, I'm going to direct it at you because we've got 30 seconds left. What one kind of resource or training initiative would you leave with the audience to continue their journey in purpose?
What advice? Listen to your heart first, and reach for the stars. I think be ambitious. You can do anything you want. I mean, often students come to me and say, but, in our role, we're going to start with very, low-level jobs at the beginning, and we are, powerless in this situation. You are all full of power. And I think what, Pour un réveil écologique did was exactly show that, students joining forces across all, ways, all types of schools, getting together, building a very, coherent and powerful message and finding the ways to share it, is a proof that, even if you don't have a lot of money or a lot of, status in society, you can do things. And wherever you are in an organization, outside of an organization, you have the power to do things as long as you aim high. You probably work with others, and you believe in your dreams. I think that would be my message.
We are all full of power. Well, let's end on that one. Thank you so much. Can I get a round of applause, please? Thank you.